The jungle night was cold, and the fog moved like quiet ghosts between tall blue trees. A small fire burned in the middle of the humans' camp. Its orange light made long shadows on the rocks. The human, his name was Rian Ward, sat on a metal. Kaysen checked the power cells of his broken beacon. He rubbed his hands together to feel some warmth. His breath came out like smoke. Somewhere far away, a creature cried with a strange, sad sound. Rian did not scare easily, but tonight felt different. The air was too still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. He had landed on this planet only 3 days earlier to repair an old research station. He expected rust, dust, and a lot of boring work. He did not expect whispers in the dark, glowing eyes in the leaves, or quiet footsteps around his camp that stopped when he stood up and started again when he sat down. He lifted the broken beacon close to the firelight and sighed. The circuit board had cracked during the storm. A thin line ran across it like a jagged river. Could fix it, but he needed a clean place and more time. He also needed to sleep. His eyes felt heavy. He reached for his mug, but the liquid was cold. He grimaced and set it down. A twig snapped behind him. Rian turned at once. "Hello?" he called out. His voice sounded too loud in the still night. No answer came. Only the fog swirled. He waited, listening. He heard the soft hiss of the fire, the faint high whistle of the beacon's dying power cell, and the beating of his own heart in his ears. He laughed quietly at himself, shook his head, and went back to work. Another sound. Not a twig this time, but a quick brush against canvas. The corner of his tent fluttered, then stilled. Rian stood, slow and careful. He picked up his flashlight. "All right," he said, trying to sound calm. "If you're a curious animal, I'm not food. If you're a thief, I don't have anything worth taking. If you're the wind, stop playing games." He shone the light toward the tent. Something small moved fast, too fast to see clearly. He swung the light the other way. Nothing. The fire cracked and sent up a spray of sparks. Rian checked the ground. Saw 3 soft, small footprints in the mud near the tent rope. They were delicate, with a split toe and light claws, but the spacing looked playful, like a child jumping between stones. He felt a smile pull at his mouth, even though his shoulders were tight. "You again," he murmured. This was not his first night with a visitor. The first night, he'd found fresh fruit stacked near his crate, like an offering. The second night, 2 smooth river stones appeared on top of his toolbox. Arranged in an X, he had left a small silver bolt on a flat rock as a thank you. In the morning, the bolt was gone, and a tiny feather lay in its place. Whoever was watching him liked to play little games. "Okay," he said into the fog. "Do you want to trade tonight too?" He looked around and lifted a wrapped candy from his pocket, a habit from long hours in space. Sweet human sugar. Best in the quadrant. Silence. Then a soft giggle high. Quick, like the laugh of a girl who knows she should be quiet, but cannot help herself. Rian's skin prickled. He lowered his light. "I mean no harm," he said softly. "I'm only here to fix a machine and go home." A shadow slid between 2 trees and stopped at the edge of the firelight. Rian held his breath. Slowly, the shadow stepped closer. The fog thinned for a moment, and he saw her. She was small and light on her feet, no taller than his shoulder, with soft gray skin that glowed faintly in the firelight. A short cloak made of woven leaves lay around her shoulders, tied with a simple cord. Her hair was a dark silver color and fell in uneven locks that looked cut with a sharp stone. 2 ears, pointed and elegant, peeked through. Her eyes were large and bright, with a ring of gold around the pupils, like sunrise caught in a glass bowl. Her mouth was small. Her teeth were neat. 2 small fangs showed when she smiled, not long enough to be frightening, just enough to be strange. She smelled like rain on dry earth. When she stepped near his table, Rian noticed her hands. 5 fingers like his, but each ended with a tiny curved claw, more for climbing trees than for fighting. She looked at the candy in his hand, tilted her head and wrinkled her nose. "Not a fan?" Rian asked, voice quiet. Put the candy on the flat rock where he had left the silver bolt last time. "A gift," he said, tapping his chest. "From me." Then he pointed at the stone. For you, she blinked slowly, then smiled again. Yo, she said, copying his words in a soft whisper. Her voice had a musical echo, like water dripping into a cave. She tapped her own chest with a claw. Lyra, Lyra, he repeated carefully. The name felt right. I'm Rian. She tried the shape of his name in her mouth. Rian. She giggled again, as if the sound tickled her throat. Rian could not help smiling back. It met many alien species as an engineer, but most meetings were formal with translators and rules. This moment felt simple and human to people in the quiet, curious about each other. Lyra moved close to the candy, sniffed it, and made a face. She pointed at his broken beacon instead, eyes shining with interest. Rian laughed softly. This is a signal device, he said, showing her the cracked board. It calls my friends in the sky, but it's sick. He pointed at the crack. Broken. Lyra's gaze moved from the beacon to Rian's face. She leaned in, nose almost. Touching his cheek, to study his eyes, Rian froze, surprised. Her breath was cool like mint leaves. She smiled, pleased by something she saw, and then quick as a flash, she leaned down and bit his forearm. Hey, Hooch! Rian shouted, pulling back by reflex. Not a hard bite, not deep, but real. 2 little points of heat on his skin. Stared at her, shocked. Why did you do that? Lyra jumped back, both hands over her mouth, eyes wide, not scared, but delighted. She laughed again, softer, as if she had made a clever joke. She pointed at the 2 small marks on his arm. Mark, she said. And then she danced to quick steps in the dirt the way a child might dance after stealing a berry and getting away with it. Rian rubbed his arm. The bite stung for a second, then the sting faded. He checked the skin, to small red dots. He looked back up at Lyra. Is this game? Lyra tilted her head. She thought for a second, then nodded. But her nod was slow, not clear. She pointed at her own forearm, then to his, then made a small, looping sign in the air. Her face grew serious for the first time, and her eyes fixed on the 2 red points again, as if she was waiting for something to happen. Rian lowered his flashlight. Okay, he said, careful and kind. It's fine. Don't do that again without asking, all right? Humans are sensitive. He smiled to show he was not angry. He had cousins who teased with gentle punches. This felt like that strange. But not cruel? Friends? He extended his hand. Lyra looked at his hand, then put her palm against his. Her skin was cool and dry. She pressed her fingers to his fingers, claw tips touching his nails, and then she drew her hand away and tapped her chest. Friend, she said. Friend, Rian agreed. The fire popped. A round of sparks floated up and died. The fog curled. Low again, and the jungle sounds returned. The soft chirp of night insects, the distant call of something with a deep chest. Rian exhaled, the tension leaving his shoulders. He sat down and gestured to the metal case across from him. You can sit, he said gently. Lyra looked at the case, then sat, hands on her knees, straight and neat like a polite student. Her eyes wandered over everything, the cooking pot, the folded map, the spare boots, the coil of rope. She reached out and touched the rope, then made a small knot with quick fingers. Rian watched her, amused. You like tools? Asked she. Did not understand the word, but she understood his tone. She nodded and pointed at the beacon again. Rian set it between them. He pulled a thin copper wire from his kit and showed her how current moved by touching the wire to the broken line. The beacon gave a weak blink. Lyra gasped and clapped once like a bird closing its wings. Rian laughed softly. Yeah, I know, it's not much, but it's something. They worked. Rian forgot about the bite. He showed her how to hold the soldering iron by the safe end and how to feed in a tiny strip of tin. Lyra copied him with serious eyes and a focused mouth. He passed her a small, magnifying lens. She took it and made a quiet wow sound when the world leaped closer. For a few minutes, they were just 2 minds solving a simple problem under a cold moon. Then Rian felt it. A soft warmth spread from the 2 red dots on his forearm, moved like a slow ripple under his skin, from his wrist to his elbow then, up toward his shoulder, He frowned and looked down. The skin around the bite shimmered faintly, as if someone had dropped a handful of silver dust in water, and the dust was drifting, turning, sinking. Do you see that? Voice 2. Calm for the shock he felt. Lyra did. Her eyes widened. Playful smile vanished. She leaned closer, not touching him, but hovering her hand over the glow. She whispered a word in her language, a word that sounded like a string stretched tight saileth. She swallowed and looked at him, and for the first time there was worry in her face. Rian tried to joke, because jokes are bridges over fear. Is this a normal side effect of making friends? Lyra did not smile. She touched her own forearm again, then his. Then lifted her hand to her throat and closed her fingers, as if holding a necklace that was not there. She spoke slowly, searching for words. Mark, she said. Hide. She tugged her cloak up as if to cover something on her skin. Hide, or others. I'll see. She glanced into the fog at the tree line. Lyra did not smile. She touched her own forearm again, then his, then lifted her hand to her throat and closed her fingers, as if holding a necklace that was not there. She spoke slowly, searching for words. Hide. She tugged her cloak up as if to cover something on her skin. Hide, or others. See? She glanced into the fog at the tree line. Rian followed her gaze. The fog seemed thicker now, the shadows deeper. The jungle had a way of changing shape. In the mind, the longer you looked at it, set the soldering iron aside, and stood. The warmth in his arm faded, leaving a strange afterfeel, not pain, but awareness, as if that part of him had learned a new language and could understand something in the air that the rest of him could not. What does it mean, Lyra? He asked. Quietly. What did you do to me? She touched the bite with one light finger, then pulled her hand back quickly, as if even that touch could be seen from far away. Play, she said, then shook her head. No play now. Her voice was soft, serious. She pointed into the dark. Hunters. Yuan's heartbeat quickened. Hunters, for me. Lyra bit her lip. For Mark. She pointed to his arm. Mark, say. Chosen. The last word came out careful and proud, but her eyes showed fear. Chosen. Mine. Rian blinked. Air left his lungs and did not return for a second. Chosen. Mine. Simple words. Meaning. He did not fully understand, but he understood enough. She had done something that others would not ignore. Far away. The sad cry from before sounded again, but now there was another sound beneath it, a low, steady thrum, like many wings beating in slow time. Lyra stood in one smooth motion. She pulled her cloak tight around her shoulders and glanced at the trees. Hide, she whispered. She pointed to a line of rocks behind the camp, where a narrow crack cut along the base like a dark smile. Cavrion picked up his bag, and the broken beacon. He thought of the candy on the rock, shining like a small gem. He left it there. Maybe a laugh later would be good. He grabbed his flashlight and checked the power. Full. He started toward the rocks, but paused when he noticed Lyra had not moved. Come on, he said, holding out his hand. Lyra looked at his hand, and at his arm where the faint shimmer had dimmed, but not disappeared. She took his hand and squeezed, strong for someone so small. Fast, she said, they moved together into the fog. The firelight died behind them, small now, like a distant star in a wide black sky. The jungle closed around them with its cold leaves and secret roots, and the ground beneath their feet grew hard and wet. The thrum in the distance grew louder.
Oh.
It was not a sound of one creature. It was many, moving as one, timing their wings. Like soldiers timing their boots at the rock cut. Lyra dropped to her knees and slid into the crack without fear. Rian followed, turning sideways to fit his shoulders through. The air inside smelled of stone and old water. He switched off his flashlight and waited for his eyes to adjust. Lycra's hand found his again and guided him deeper. The passage widened. A little, then opened into a small chamber where they could crouch without scraping their backs. Rian breathed out slowly. The stone was cool against his palms. He could still feel the mark on his arm faint, but present, like a quiet heartbeat of light under his skin. He thought of his ship, his work orders, the simple plan he had made for this week. He felt those things drift away from him, like paper boats in a fast river. Outside, the thrum reached the camp. The sound did not stop at the firelight. It circled, careful, patient. Lyra touched his shoulder and lifted a finger to her lips. "Be silent." Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, twin rings of gold. Rian nodded. He held his breath and listened. A shape landed near the fire, then another, then another. Soft feet on wet earth, soft hiss, like breath through teeth. A new light entered the fog-cold blue this time, not warm orange. It moved over the crates, over the tent flap, over the flat rock with the candy. Rian heard the rustle of the wrapper, a small sound swallowed by a larger one. A voice he could not understand, low and rough, speaking a language with more growl than song. Lyra's hand tightened on his sleeve. Her body went very still beside him, like a tree shadow. Rian did not know what the mark truly meant. He did not know how many hunters had come. He did not know why a playful bite could turn a quiet night into danger. But he knew one thing very clearly: in that dark cave, his life had just changed. The old plan was gone. New path had opened, narrow, hidden, and bright under the skin. Outside, the cold blue light stopped on the ground where two small red dots had bled earlier. The voice spoke again, sharper now. Feet turned toward the rocks. Lyra leaned close, her lips near his ear. She whispered one word in simple, careful English, a word she had learned only minutes ago, but now it was heavy like metal. Run. They ran. Rian did not argue or ask questions. He followed Lyra through the narrow cave passage, one hand on the rough wall, the other holding his pack tight. The rock scraped his knuckles, and cold water dripped from the ceiling in slow beats. Behind them, the sound at the camp grew louder: footsteps, low voices, a sharp click like metal against stone. The hunters were close and careful. They were also patient. It scared him most. Lyra moved like a shadow that knew every corner of the dark. When the passage dipped, she slipped ahead and pulled him through. When the rock rose, she went first and reached down to guide his hands. She did not speak. She did not need to. Her touch was light and quick, like a small bell tapping his skin. When she let go, he wanted to keep moving only so he would feel that light touch again. He did not like that thought, and yet it felt true. They came to a fork, two cuts in the rock, both tight, both black. Lyra crouched and pressed her ear to the left passage, then the right. She shook her head. She turned to Rian and pointed to his arm. "Mark," she whispered, and then she did something strange. She lifted her hand and held it a few inches from the bite. "Here," she said softly. "Here," Rian asked. He listened.
At!
He heard only the drip-drip of water and the far murmur of voices. Then, slowly, a faint sound grew inside his arm, not in his ear. It was like the hum of a tiny wire when current goes through it. It matched the beat of his heart, and then it did not. Sped up, slowed down, and pulled, like a magnet, choosing a direction. When he moved his arm toward the left passage, the hum softened. When he moved it toward the right, the hum sharpened into a thin, urgent tone. Rian looked at Lyra. She nodded once. Right? How Rian started, then stopped. There would be time later, or there would not. He chose trust now, and moved right. The rock squeezed them for 10 long steps, then opened into a lower tunnel. Thin, pale insects blinked on the walls like fallen stars. The floor sloped down, and the air grew colder. Rian's breath fogged and drifted. His boots slipped on wet stone, and he put a hand out to steady himself. Lyra's fingers caught his wrist again, strong for someone. "So slight care," she whispered, pointing ahead. The tunnel ended at a drop. It was not high, maybe the height of 2 men, but the bottom was a shallow stream over glassy rock. If they fell wrong, ankles would twist, noise would splash, and hunters would hear. Lyra crouched, studied the edge, and then she did what looked like magic, but was only skill. She climbed down without a sound. using small notches in the rock that Rian had not seen at all. She looked up and motioned. Come. Rian tested the first notch, then the next. His grip felt sure, more sure than it should. The faint hum in his arm returned, but now it felt like a rhythm that guided his feet. Now this step, now that hand. He moved smoother than he expected. When his boot slipped, his other leg shot out on its own and found a ledge. He reached the bottom, surprised by himself. He had never been a climber. He had never moved like this. Lyra saw his face and gave a small, proud nod, as if she had expected it. Echo, she said, tapping the bite mark. Echo of me. You mean the mark echoes you? He asked. She searched for a word, then nodded again. Share, she said, small share. Rian wanted to ask 100 questions. He wanted to know if this echo would fade or grow, if it would change him into something else, if he would still be himself tomorrow. But the water whispered over stone and carried away his questions. There was only running and not being caught. They waded downstream, careful to step where the water already made noise so their steps would hide inside it. The stream turned and turned again until the tunnel split one more time. Lyra stopped and closed her eyes. She placed her palm over the 2 red dots on Rian's arm and hummed a note that sounded like a small, low song. Rian felt the vibration in his bone. It was a quiet music, simple and pure, like a flute made of reed. Under his skin, the mark answered. He did not hear words, but he felt direction, a soft pull to the left. Lyra opened her eyes. Left, she whispered. Then she looked at him, and the worry in her gold-ringed eyes had another color now, guilt. Sorry, she said suddenly, surprising him. I play. No, I should not. Rian shook his head. We're alive because you knew where to run. She looked down. Hunters come because marks shine, she said. Shine for my people. Shine. For enemies too. She touched the stream, lifted her wet fingers, and wiped them across his bite as if to smear it. The faint shimmer dimmed a little. Hide mark is hard, she added. For human, very hard. What happens if they catch us? Rian asked. Lyra's mouth tightened. It did not say the word he feared. She gave him a new one clear. Heavy, strange in her soft voice. Trial. Trial. She nodded. Old rules. I bite. I choose. Others can. Contest, she said slowly. Strongest claim stands. If claim break, I belong to clan chief. If claim hold you, belong to me. She did not smile when she said it. She looked ashamed and also brave, like someone telling a truth they cannot change. Rian swallowed. The water had never felt so cold. I didn't agree, he said. Not angry, only honest. Lyra stared at the stream. I forget, she whispered. With you, I feel safe. Like when I was small. I play. I bite like small one. I forget what mark means. She lifted her eyes. I am sorry, Rian. Could have held the apology like a tool and used it to cut away his fear. But the fear did not move. He looked at her and realized she was not leading him for fun. She was leading him because she had made a mistake, and now she would carry it with him. It did not make him feel better. It made him feel something else, responsibility. Keep moving, he said. We don't let them decide who belongs to who. Lyra's mouth softened. She nodded once. We keep moving. Left it was. The tunnel curled, then dropped again. This time, there were no notches. There was only a smooth slope that ended in darkness. Lyra tested the surface with her bare foot, then pulled back. Too fast, she said. We slide. Loud. Rian crouched and ran his fingers over the rock. Slime, thin and slick. Can we make a rope? Lyra looked at the coil in his pack and then at the smooth walls. No hold, she said. Her gaze flicked to the ceiling. Small fittings of root hung down like dead vines. Maybe, she added, doubt in her voice. Rian checked his kit. He had the rope, 2 anchors for soft stone, and a compact spike driver. The driver was loud. The hunters would hear it if they were close. But he had an idea. He strapped the rope around his waist, tied a bowline the way his father had taught him on old docks, and handed the other end to Lyra. Wrap around that root cluster, he said. Twice. If it breaks, let go before it pulls you down. Lyra studied the knot. The rope, the root. She nodded and moved quick light, tying clean, neat loops. She looked at him, eyes saying, "Be careful," even when her mouth did not. Rian lowered himself over the edge. The rock was slick, but the rope took his weight. He kept his feet wide, slid slow, and let the rope slip inch by inch through his burned hands. The root held. The slope turned less steep halfway, and he found small ridges for his heels. He reached the bottom, breath loud in his chest, and looked up. "Your turn," he whispered. Lyra shook her head and pointed to a thin ledge. On the side that his eyes had missed, "I go there," she said, and moved like a lizard, hands and feet balanced on the small lip, body close to stone. In 3 breaths, she was beside him. The root above them gave a soft groan and then stilled. They did not wait to hear it break. The new passage was wider and smelled of open air. That meant hope. It also meant risk. Wind carried sound both ways. They moved slower, listening. After 30 steps, the ceiling opened into a long crack, and blue-gray light fell across the floor. Dawn? No, too early. Rian realized the light was not from the sky, but from the forest itself, glow moss, clinging to a high slit, sending down a cold, steady shine. Lyra touched the light beam with one finger, then touched her lips. "Quiet song," she said. "Forest. Watch. Forest watches us." She nodded. "Forest likes Mark. Mark is old. Forest know old things." She pointed to his arm again, and her face tightened. "But Forest tell others too." "Then let's be boring to the forest, Rian," said no bright moves. They hugged the shadowed side of the wall and kept going. The tunnel bent left again, and then rose toward a low oval opening. Beyond it, Rian heard a new sound, water moving in air, free and fast. A fall. If there was a waterfall, there might be an exit to the outside, or at least a loud noise to cover their steps. Lyra crawled to the oval and looked through. She pulled back at once, eyes dark. She drew 3 small shapes in the dust with her nail. A circle, another circle, and a triangle. She tapped the triangle and made a small hiss. Then she tapped the circles and made 2 short clicks. 3, Rian asked. She held up 3 fingers and then lowered 2, leaving 1. She pointed to the triangle and tapped her own chest. "Leader," Rian took a slow breath. "The leader is here." Lyra nodded. "Scow. See?" He studied the opening. The waterfall made a white curtain in the narrow ravine. A stone bridge, natural and wet, crossed the spray. The far side, 3 figures crouched in gray armor, the color of river rock. They were small like Lyra, but heavier with plates on chest and shoulders. Their faces were hidden behind thin masks made of bone. They held short spears with hooked heads that could pull or cut. The triangle marked, one stood a little ahead. Even without seeing his face, Rian felt the way the air leaned toward him, like the forest itself listened when he moved. Lyra touched Rian's sleeve and pointed up. Another crack ran above the oval opening, too thin for one of the armored hunters. Maybe big enough for Lyra, maybe for Rian if he turned sideways and breathed out. The crack led past the waterfall and into shadow. Rian did not see handholds, but the echo in his arm pulsed once, twice, like a quiet yes. He nodded. "We tried the crack." Lyra's eyes widened and softened. She had not needed to explain. He had read her plan. That scared him almost as much as it helped him. Backed away from the oval, stayed low, and moved along the wall until they reached the crack. The first few feet were easy, then the space narrowed. Rian pressed his chest to one side, his back to the other, and pushed up in tiny lifts. Lyra went first, her small frame slipping where his shoulders stuck. Twice he thought he would wedged, there forever. Twice his body found a new angle it had never tried before. The echo guided his hips and knees the way a teacher guides a child's hands on a drum. Now press, now release. Halfway up, a pebble dropped from Lyra's heel and bounced again, and fell into the spray below. The sound was small, but it was also not part of the water's constant voice. The leader's head turned. Dot. The two others turned with him. The hooked spears lifted like pointing fingers. Lyra froze. Rian could not see the hunters now, but he felt their attention like heat on his skin. He did not move. He counted heartbeats. The echo in his arm kept time, small and steady. The waterfall roared. A bird cried outside. A long breath of wind slid through the ravine. The leader lowered his spear point by a hair, then raised it again, unsure. He stepped onto the bridge. Lyra's hand came down, light on Rian's forearm. She drew a line on his skin with her finger, up over left. It was a map on his body. He pictured it. He followed. They moved again, slow, silent. The crack curved over the ravine like a hidden path in a story. Rian reached a place where the stone flared outward, leaving only a narrow lip for his foot. Oh! He searched for something for his hand and found nothing. He would fall if he guessed wrong. The echo pulsed. Rian closed his eyes for half a heartbeat and let his arm choose. He shifted his weight, put two fingers into a tiny hole he could not see, pulled, and slid past the flare. His boots scraped. The leader below stopped, looked up, bone mask gleaming. The two others held their breath. Rian held his too. A large leaf, torn free by the wind, blew across the opening and slapped the rock. The leader flinched. One of the others laughed once, in a high, nervous way. The leader hissed at him. The leaf fell into the water and vanished under the white spray. Rian began to breathe again, slow and thin. Minutes later, when as long as a night, they reached a dark pocket where the crack widened into a small shelf. They were beyond the waterfall now. The roar faded to a thick murmur. Lyra folded her legs and listened. Rian leaned his head against the cool wall. His hands shook in little afterwaves. He did not try to stop them. Lyra touched the bite gently, like a healer checking a wound. The shimmer was faint now, almost gone, but he still felt the hum in his bone. Hide mark soon, she said. If not, more come. Can it be hidden for good? Rian asked. Not just dimmed? Lyra hesitated. There is way, she said at last. Old way. We call it the hush. It makes Mark quiet. It makes Bond sleep. That sounds good. It's for human, she said softly. It may be not good. She looked at his eyes. Hush takes breath for a time. Heart slows, very slow. If heart is stubborn, it stops. Rian stared at her. It can kill me. She nodded once. Some humans live, some do not. My people can do hush as children, your people, not made for it. He rubbed his face. Choice felt heavy and close, even though they could not do it now. We'll try not dying first, he said. Then we decide. Lyra's mouth curved into the smallest smile. Not dying is good plan. They rested 2 minutes, then 3. On the far side of the ravine, the hunters moved again. Their footsteps faded, then returned from a different angle. They were searching the cracks with long hooks and patient eyes. They would keep searching until they found a sign or were called. Away. Lyra stood and pointed deeper into the rock. Old path, she said. To root house. Root house. She nodded. Where old trees meet stone. Safe for me. Maybe safe for you. Maybe safe is the best word I've heard today, Rian said. They went on single file through a tunnel that felt less like a cave and more like the inside of a living thing. The walls were lined with roots that had grown into the stone and become part of it, dark cords with a slow pulse, moving water and something else Rian could not name. When his sleeve brushed one, the mark in his arm answered with a soft ripple. The roots did not like him. They did not hate him. They noticed him. It was like walking through a room full of old, wise faces. Lyra walked with respect here. She touched the roots with flat hands as a greeting. She whispered words that sounded like rain speaking to soil. Once, she stopped and pressed both palms to one thick root and closed her eyes. Rian waited. After a breath, she opened her eyes. Again, forests say hunters go east, she said. We go west. You can talk to it, Rian said. Half statement, half wonder. Lyra tilted her head. It is not talk. It is listen together. They turned west. The tunnel rose, then leveled. The air warmed and stirred. Rian smelled leaf, damp bark, a hint of fruit. A pale glow grew ahead, not blue and cold this time, but soft and green. Lyra looked back at him, and in her eyes, for the first time since. The bite was something like hope. The root house, she whispered. We are close, Rian nodded. I felt the echo hum again, not as warning but as answer, like two notes fitting inside one chord. He was still afraid and confused. But he was also something else now, connected to a path he had not chosen in a world that had suddenly chosen him. Behind them, very far, a horn sounded, low and long. Lyra's hope sharpened into focus. They call more, she said. Be fast. Fast, Rian agreed. They stepped into the green light together. The tunnel ended in a soft green glow. Rian and Lyra stepped out of the stone throat and into a hidden chamber shaped by living roots. The pillars of wood grew down from the ceiling and up from the floor until they met and braided together. Like giant fingers, the air felt warm and wet. It smelled of leaf, moss, and fresh rain. Drops hung on every thread of the roots and shone like tiny lamps. The sound of far water made a steady hush, like a sleeping animal that dreamed but did not wake. Lyra stopped just inside and pressed both palms to a wide root. She bowed her head. Her voice came out low and respectful. Outhouse, she said, safe for my people, careful for yours. Rian looked around with wide eyes. It was not a house made by hands, it was grown. Openings like windows had no glass, only screens of vines. The ground was a soft mat of woven bark. In one corner stood a bowl carved into living wood. It held clear water that reflected the green light. In another corner, bundles of dry leaves were tied tight with fiber, like little drums stacked for sleep. It's beautiful, he said. His voice dropped without him trying. The place asked for quiet the way a library asks, and you just obey. Lyra moved to the water bowl and rinsed her hands. She lifted a little water to his lips. Drink a mouth, not more. It is strong. Rian tasted it. The water was cool and sweet with something like mint and smoke. A slow calm slid through his chest, but it did not make him slow. It made the edges inside him clear. He pulled back after one mouthful, like she said. Lyra stood beside him and touched the bite on his arm. The shimmer was almost gone now, but Rian could still feel the hum in his bone, soft like a quiet engine at idle. Mark is quiet, she said. Forest helped hide it when we walked the roots. Can the root house hide us from the hunters? Wyan asked. Lyra's answer was, careful, honest, some, not all. The house does not fight for us. It does not fight for them. It balances. Rian nodded. He understood the word even if the rules were strange. Balance. Give and take. No free shelter. He set his pack down and opened it. I need 10 minutes, he said. I'll make alarms. If anyone comes, we'll hear before they see us. Lyra watched his hands as he worked. He pulled a thin cord for flat metal clips, a handful of tiny beads, a coil of dull silver foil, and a finger-long battery from a pocket at the back of his kit. He tied 2 low trip lines across the outer ring of roots, close to the floor where a careful foot might still brush. At each line he clipped a pair of beads chime seeds he had found in the jungle on the first day. They sounded like glass when they touched. Now they would speak for him. He took the foil and taped it to the inner curve of one vine screen to make a crude mirror. He set the battery under the mirror with a trigger of thin wire. It was a simple trick. Light bounced off the foil if someone raised a lamp or glare plate. The light would strike the wire and heat it. The wire would flex and close a contact. The contact would wake a small red light on his wrist screen and buzz once. Quiet, but enough. Lyra's eyes shone with approval. Human tools, she said. Softly. Small, but clever. Small and cheap, he said with a smile, but sometimes enough. They worked in silence for a few more minutes. Lyra took 3 of the leaf bundles and set them by the 2 doors the root house offered. She opened one bundle and spread the leaves into a thin blanket. Scent bed, she said. If hunters cross, leaf breaks, and speak to roots. Roots wake me, good Rian said. He checked the last knot and breathed out. Now we think about your hush ritual. If we must do it, we should know how. Lyra sat cross-legged on the bark and tapped the ground for him to sit too. He did. She spoke slow, simple, careful, making sure each word was a clear step. Hush is old, she began. Older than clans, older than bone masks, and predator. Hunted us long ago. Some learned a slow breath, slow blood, slow light and skin. Hunters smelled nothing. Predators heard nothing. The body hid like a stone. When danger left, the body woke. She touched Rian's arm. Your mark is still new. It shines, even if quiet. Hush could make it sleep. You would sleep too. For a little time, but your heart is different from ours. It may not like the hush. How do you do it? Asked she. Drew a circle on the bark between them with her nail. Sit in a circle of roots. We breathe with the root pulse. Press a sap. Very little under the tongue. The sap tells the blood to slow. It is a gentle command for my people. It is a hard command for yours. Is there a way to test a small version? Rian asked, like putting a toe in cold water first. Lyra's mouth curved at the phrase. A small hush exists, she said. A breath hush. No sap. Only root pulse. We can try. If you feel bad, you stop. Not now, Rian said, head turned toward the outer screen. Later, after the first danger, Lyra followed his look. She had heard it too. The forests. Regular hush had shifted. Bird sound had stopped and not started again. A low branch had creaked and then held very still. Rian's wrist screen buzzed once. The foil trap had seen a light. Lyra stood in one clean motion. She put a finger to her lips. She moved to the left door and lowered herself beside the vine screen. Rian stepped to the right door and crouched behind the root pillar. Small stunner from his Kitafield tool meant for clamping hot parts that could also deliver a brief shock. It was not a weapon for war, but it might be enough if his hand was steady and the echo in his arm kept working. A shadow passed across the outer green. Another shadow. The chime seeds clicked once and then went quiet. Whoever came had felt the trap and lifted their foot. Careful hunters, then. Lyra picked up one leaf drum and pressed her palm to it. The surface changed under her hand, hard to soft, like fruit ripening fast. A whisper ran through the roots of the house in a circle and returned to her. She looked. Across at Rian and raised 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. 3, 2, 1. She pointed to his door and then shook her head. Not your door, mine. Rian breathed slow. He listened beyond his ears. The echo in his arm hummed and then pulled tight like a string drawn back. It pointed to the left, to Lyra's door, then fluttered toward him and back out again, as if someone was drawing a curved line in the air. A flanking move. He set the stunner down and took the coil of rope. He tied a loop, looped it again, and made a snare a child could make in a story. Except this snare had teeth. He wove 3 chime seeds into the knot and a flat metal clip that would bite when pulled. He fixed the snare low on his doorway and fed the rope up around a branch above. He held the free end in his left hand and placed his right hand on the root pillar. The hunting light grew brighter. A soft foot slid over the scent bed. The leaf broke with a tiny sigh. Lyra's eyes sharpened. She stayed still. A gray spear tip pushed through the vine screen like a cold finger feeling for heat. It moved slow, tasting the air. Then the spear struck. It tore the screen aside and lunged for Lyra's throat. Lyra moved, but not back. She went forward into the arc, like a dancer stepping into a ribbon. The spear grazed her shoulder where the cloak was thickest and stabbed into the root behind. Her with a wet thunk. Before the hunter could pull, she gripped the shaft with both hands, put her foot on the vine, and used the hunter's own push to wrench him off balance. A small armored body stumbled inside with a hiss. Rian's rope jumped in his left hand. The echo screamed caution in his bones. He yanked hard, A second hunter waiting at Rion's door with a net of cold thread stepped where the snare lay. The loop closed on his ankle. Chime seeds cracked together and woke the flat clip. The clip bit his skin through the armor gap and sent a sharp shock up his leg. He cried out, fell forward, and fired the net too soon. The threads spread and clung to the root pillars instead of Rion. They hardened in a blink, making a bright web that was strong and brittle. Rion dove through the web while it was still forming and slammed the stunner into the second hunter's wrist. The short spear clanged to the floor. Rion kicked it away. The hunter rolled and came up fast, eyes hard behind the bone mask. He had a small hook blade in his other hand now, cut at Rion's thigh. The echo pulled Rion's body one hand's width to the left. The hook kissed air. Rion's elbow moved on its own and caught the hunter's mask. The bone cracked. The hunter staggered, shocked by pain more than by force. Rion could have pressed and broken more. He did not. He grabbed the hunter's wrist and pushed it against the web. The cold thread stuck to the blade and to the wrist guard. The hunter tried to pull free and only trapped himself deeper. Stay, Rion said, breath rough. Live. He meant it. The hunter heard the meaning, even if he did not know the words. He stopped pulling. His chest moved fast. His eyes watched. Lyra fought the first hunter in the left doorway. It was not a clean fight. It was fast and close. The spearman recovered and twisted the shaft to loop Lyra's arm. She ducked and bit the shaft itself, spit it in her small fangs, sank into the oiled wood, and held for half a second. Just long enough for her foot to stamp the hunter's knee. He cried out. She let go of the wood, rolled, and came up with the shaft in her hands. She snapped it where it was already half split against the root. The spear became a short staff. The hunter dropped the broken part and drew a side blade, slashed Lyra, blocked with the staff, and slid inside the next cut. Her elbow hit his chest plate, and Rian heard a breath leave the hunter like wind punched from a bellows. She could have driven the staff into the gap under his ribs. She did not. She hit the mask high, a sharp crack that made his eyes ring. He dropped to one knee. She put the staff under his chin and held. Yield, she said in her own language. Live. He froze. Pride fought with training and pain inside him. Then training won. He lowered his blade and tapped the floor twice with it. Yield, Lyra. Pulled back and let him breathe. A third shadow filled the doorway, then taller than the first two, heavier in the shoulders. Bone mask patterned with 3 sharp triangles. The leader from the ravine, he did not rush, stepped into the root house with the quiet of a knife sliding into a sheath. He looked at his 2 hunters, at the web, at the broken spear, at Rion, at Lyra. His eyes were like 2 stones in the shadow of the mask. Thren, Lyra said, voice cool. Rion felt the name like a small cold coin dropped into a still pool. The ripples went to the edges of the room. Thren tilted his head. His voice was low and dry. He spoke in Lyra's language, and even in a language Rion did not know, his tone carried a hard smile. Lyra listened, jaw tight, then answered calm but fierce. She pointed to Rion. She pointed to her own arm. She spoke a single clear word Rion knew now, chosen. Thren looked at Rion without blinking. He took 1 step closer. Rion rose and did not step back. The echo in his arm hummed, not in fear, but like a string tuned to a note it knew. Thren raised 1 hand. Between his fingers something small glowed, a moth made of light, a cluster of bright dust. He threw it up. It broke into a cloud of tiny sparks that flew to the vine screen and stuck there like cold fire. It did not burn. It marked. Lyra's face hardened. Trial, she said in a voice that was almost a growl. He calls the trial. Drum Thren touched his chest with 2 fingers, and then the floor. He spoke 1 more sentence. Rion did not need a translator to understand. The leader had set a time. The leader would return with witnesses. If the human ran, the claim would break by coward's law. If the human stood, the trial would choose. The choice would echo. Thren turned, lifted his 2 hunters with cold kindness like a stone father, and left the root house the way he came. The cold fire dust faded, but did not go dark. It stayed as dull little stars on the vines, waiting. Rian let out a breath he had not known he was holding. His hands shook. He rubbed one palm on his pants and then looked down at the hunter he had trapped in the web. The small man did not move. He was awake, eyes on Rian, chest steady. Rian cut the threads from his wrist with the hook blade he had taken and pushed the blade back toward him with his boot. "Go," he said softly. "Tell your leader I stood." The hunter hesitated, then nodded once, quick and clean, like a soldier saluting a worthy enemy. He slid out and was gone. Lyra knelt and touched Rian's arm. The mark under his skin felt hot. She frowned. "The trial is at high sun," she said. "Our sun is fast. It will be soon." "What happens at the trial?" Rian asked. Lyra swallowed. 3 tests. One of body, one of breath, one of truth. Body is fight. Breath is endurance. Truth is to stand under the listening tree and speak without fear. The tree hears lies and heartbeats. Rian looked at the vine screen where the cold dust still clung. He thought of the hush ritual. He thought of running. He thought of standing. He thought of the way Thren had moved, calm, exact, sure. "Don't want to be owned," he said. "Not by you, not by anyone." Looked at her so she heard the rest. "But I will not let them take you because of a game you forgot was not a game." Lyra's eyes filled with heat and shine. She bowed her head once, slow. "We stand," she said. "But first, small hush. The mark must be quiet, or they will see it like a banner." Rian sat cross-legged again. "Teach me." She drew a circle with her nail. The roots around them trembled, then grew still, then began to throb with a slow, soft pulse. Lyra placed her hand on Rian's arm and found the marks beat. "Touch the root," she whispered. "Breathe in when the root swells. Breathe out when it softens. Do not force, follow." Rian closed his eyes. He listened with his skin. Echo hummed, then leaned, then synced. He breathed in when the floor rose a hair under him, out when it dropped. His chest slowed. The wild jump in his heart fell into a wide, steady river. His shoulders loosened, his hands cooled. Fear did not. Leave. It sat down and folded its legs and waited with him. Lyra watched him, ready to touch his chin and wake him if he faded too deep. She saw sweat bloom and then dry on his lip. She saw the skin around the bite change from faint glow to quiet shadow. She nodded to herself. "Good," she breathed. "Enough." Yen opened his eyes. The world had edges again. He felt steady. He also felt empty in a clean way, like a room swept of dust. "Is it safe? As safe as we can make?" Lyra said. She stood and picked up the short staff she had taken from the broken spear. She offered it to him. He shook his head and lifted the stunner instead. "I'll use my tools," he said. "And this." He touched the root. "And your echo." Lyra smiled, a real smile now, small and bright. "Then we go," she said. "The listening tree waits. The leader waits. And the sun is climbing fast." They stepped out of the root house into the green day. The cold dust sparks on the vines lit their path like warning stars. Far away, a drum sounded once, not a war drum, a round, deep sound that carried through wood and stone. A trial drum, Rian squared his shoulders. The echo in his arm answered. The drum, with a quiet, brave note, they walked toward the test that would decide both their fates. The path to the trial ground broke out of the roots and into open light. Tall trees stood like watchtowers around a wide circle of pale stones. In the center grew a single great tree with a trunk as wide as a house. Its bark was smooth and pale, crossed by fine lines that glowed like slow rivers under the skin. Wind moved through its leaves and made a sound like many small bells. The people called it the listening tree. Lyra stopped at the edge of the circle and bowed her head. Wyan did. The same, because the place told him to. It was not fear. It was respect. He felt the echo in his marked arm hum and then fall quiet, as if it, too, was listening. Clansfolk stood in short rows between the stone's warriors and gray plates. Elders in woven leaf cloaks, children with bright eyes who whispered and pointed, then hid their faces. Thren, the leader with the bone mask, marked by 3 triangles, waited near the tree. 2 hunters stood beside him, tall and still. A drum lay on a flat rock to his left. It was round and dark, with a skin that shone like wet night. Lyra led Rian into the circle. A low murmur passed through the people. Some moved back, some leaned forward. One child, brave, curious, stepped into Rian's path and held up a small hand, palm flat. Rian paused, then pressed his palm to the child's in gentle greeting. The child laughed in surprise at the warmth of human skin and ran back to her mother, who did not scold her.
The mother.
The mother only watched Rian with careful eyes. Anne, elder woman, came from the far side, walking with a staff cut from the root of some old tree. Her hair was silver white, her face lined like bark, but her eyes were clear. She spoke in Lyra's language, then turned to Rian and tried a few words in broken trade speech. "You stand," she said slowly. "You not run? This is good. I am Sen. I hold law." Rian nodded. "I am Rian," he said. "I will stand." Thren placed 2 fingers on the drum skin. The sound that came out was not loud, but it carried. It was like a heart tapping on stone. The circle grew still. The listening trees' leaves quieted, almost as if they were waiting for the drum to finish before they spoke again. Sen lifted her staff. 3 tests, she said in trade so Rian would hear. Truth, breath, body. She glanced at Thren. "We begin with truth today. We do not waste breath and blood if the heart is false." Thren gave one small nod. His eyes never left Rian. Lyra's hand brushed Rian's sleeve once. He felt that small touch more than the hundreds of eyes around him. "Remember the root pulse," she whispered. "Breathe with it." Sin led them under the listening tree. Up close, Rian saw fine veins of light where the bark split. He heard a slow, steady sound from inside the wood, a deep tone like a far river under stone. He placed his hand on the trunk, because Sen showed him too. The bark was not rough. It was warm, like the side of some sleeping animal. Sen looked at Rian. "Speak," she said. "Speak what you want. Speak what you fear. Speak what you will do." The tree listens. If you lie, your heartbeat will break the root rhythm. The leaves will answer. If you do not lie, the leaves will keep quiet. Rian swallowed. Could feel the hush breath he had learned in the root house. He matched it to the slow sound in the trunk. In with the swell, out with the soften. The echo in his marked arm found the rhythm and hummed along. "I do not want to own Lyra," he said, simple and clear. The word own tasted bad. "I do not want anyone to own me." The leaves did not move. "I am angry that a playful bite brought hunters to my camp," he said. I am angry that your leader marked my shelter and called for a trial. I do not understand." A small ripple ran through the leaves, but it was only wind passing the rim of the circle. The trunk under his hand stayed warm and steady. "I am also grateful we are alive," he said. "We are alive because Lyra knew the dark paths, and I trusted her. I will keep trusting her. I will stand today to protect her from a law she did not mean to call." The leaves stayed quiet. No bell sound followed his words. Sen's lined face softened a little like stone warmed by sun. Thren stepped forward 1 pace. "Ask him," he said in his own tongue. Sen turned the words to, "Trade for Rian? Do you seek power among us? Do you want our metal, our secrets, our roots?" Rian looked from Thren to the tree. "No," he said. "Why, to finish my work, call my ship, and go home. Lyra ever walks with me, it will be because she chooses that path, not because a mark forces it. If she does not, I will still protect her here now." The leaves were still. The glow under the bark brightened once, then returned to its slow flow, as if the tree had nodded in a language older than speech. Sen turned to Lyra. "Child," she said softly, "you bit the human. Some call that play. Some call that a vow. Speak under the tree. What do you choose?" Lyra set her palm on the bark. She looked small next to it. Her gold-ringed eyes were calm and bright. "I bit because I forgot," she said in her language, but slow so Rian could hear the shape. "I forgot that child play is not the same as clan law. I do not want to bind a man without his yes. I want him free. I want to be free too." Die. Also want him safe. I choose to stand with him. The leaves stayed quiet. One tiny seed let go and fell between them. Lyra caught it in her hand and closed her fingers. Rian did not know the meaning, but he felt like the tree had given them a small sign, like a wink from a very old eye. Sin lifted her staff again. Truth holds, she said. Now breath. Two youths brought a low platform into the circle 3. Narrow beams of living root stretched between 4 standing stones. In the middle, a small bowl smoked with a thin gray thread. It smelled like sweet mint and cold iron. Sen pointed to the beams. Cross slow, she said. Breathe with the root rhythm. If breath runs wild, the beams will tremble. If you fall, the smoke will pull your breath away. We pull you out fast. But those who panic do not pass. Thren spoke to one of his hunters. A woman with short braids and a plate scar at her jaw stepped up. She went first. She closed her eyes, set her feet, and walked the beam like a line of music. The smoke curled around her face and went on. She reached the far stone and stood, steady as a post. Lyra touched Rian's arm again. Small hush, she whispered. Only breath, no sap. Rian stepped onto the first beam. It was narrow, but not cruel. It had a little give, like a quiet back under his feet. He looked at the far stone. He did not hurry. He matched the beam to the slow beat in the listening tree. In, out, step, pause, step. The smoke moved around his face, soft and cool at first, then a little heavy, like night air before rain. His chest wanted to pull fast. He told it no. He held the slow song he had learned. The echo in his arm guided him like a hand under a child's elbow. Halfway across, a flicker moved at the edge of his eye. A child had climbed a root and slipped. Her small foot kicked the stone. Her mother grabbed her before she fell, but the small cry cut across the rhythm inside Rian's chest. His breath jumped 1 beat too fast. The beam trembled. Slow Lyra breathed. He did not look back. He went inside. He found the mark. He listened to the root under the ground. He let his breath fall into its old pace again. The beam steadied, finished the last steps, and stepped down. The smoke smell slid away like a cloud pulled by wind. The people made a small sound relief. Respect. Thren said nothing, but he turned his head a hair, as if the angle of the human had changed in his eyes. Breath holds, Sen said. She touched the drum once. Sound went round the circle and came back slow. Now body. The ring for fighting was simple, an open space between 4 stones, with soft woven bark laid down so bones would not break fast. Tools and blades were set on a mat at the edge staves, short spears, blunt hooks, shields of root and hide. Sen raised her staff again. No killing, she said. No cut for bloodjoy. You win when the other cannot rise, or yields, or when you show a clean hold. The human may use his own craft, if it is not fire. Rian looked at the mat. He could choose a staff. He had moved well with the broken spear in the root house. But he also had his stunner. He did not like to shock people, yet this was not war. It was a test. He chose both. A light staff of root in his left hand, the stunner in his right pocket for a last resort. Thren spoke a name. Varek. A warrior stepped into the ring. He was not huge. He was quick. His tail is short, thick. Cord of muscle gave him balance. He carried 2 half-spears, blades removed, ends wrapped in leather. He spun them once, not to show off, but to feel the weight. They faced each other and bowed. The drum tapped. The fight began. Varek moved first, low and fast. He stepped left, and right and left again, feet light, tips of his half-spears testing. Rian did not chase the motion. He let it come to him. The echo in his arm hummed, and then pointed. When Varek slid inside, Rian's staff met 1 half-spear with a quick knock. The other half-spear whipped toward his knee. He turned it with the butt of his staff and felt the strike travel into the ground through his heel. Not stop it in. Your body? Let the earth eat it. He remembered the docks, his father's voice. Let the pier take the boat's push. Don't fight the water. Varek smiled behind his mask. He liked a good dance. He turned the pace up. The ends of his sticks kissed Rian's ribs and shoulder not hard, measuring. Wyon took the measure and offered one of his own. He fainted. Hi, Varric. Went to block. Ryan shifted low and tapped Varric's ankle. It was a light touch, but it moved the foot a half-inch. Varric stepped wide to save balance. The people made a small sound. They had seen Ryan use the echo without knowing its name. The pace climbed again. Varric tried a hook behind Ryan's knee. Ryan let his leg go soft and slipped out. He felt the root bark under his feet and matched it to his breath. In, out. Step. Turn. The fight became a circle of small choices. Varric feinted left, spun right, and slid a stick toward Ryan's throat. Ryan ducked. The stick grazed his ear. He did not like how close that was. He brought his staff across Varric's hands and trapped one stick for a breath. Varric twisted free and jumped back. Both men reset. Enough testing, Thren said softly. Mostly to himself, but Ryan heard the shift. Varric came in like a storm. Fast, sharp. He drove Ryan back 2 steps, 3. Ryan gave ground, but not panic. He saw a shapa, a small empty pocket near Varric's right hip, where the tail set his weight. He stepped into that pocket, not out of it. His shoulder brushed Varric's chest. He hooked the back of Varric's knee with the staff and set his other hand on Varric's belt plate. He did not throw him. He leaned him into the ground the way. A door leaned shut. Varric hit the bark hard enough to make a dull sound. Ryan could have dropped an elbow. He did not. Put the staff across Varric's collarbone and waited. Yield, he said, breath steady. Varric bucked once, twice. He stopped, tapped the bark twice with his free hand. Yield. Ryan stepped back at once and offered a hand. Varric took it and rose. He touched his chest to show respect. His eyes were bright. He had not been shamed. He had been tested and found a wall where he expected a window. Sen let out a breath that might have been a prayer. She touched the drum again. Body holds, she said. Truth holds. Breath holds. She looked at Thren. By law, the claim stands as shared choice, not as chain. Now the mark may sleep by the hush when the right time comes. The human is free. The girl is free. They may walk together or not. The circle stirred. Some nodded. Some looked confused. Some seemed relieved. In their bones, Thren's head tilted. His mask did not change, but his voice cooled. By law, he said, a leader may call a final test when a stranger wins 3. Old, right? Warlord's exception. Sen frowned. Thren raised his palm. I call it, he said. He pointed at Ryan. Face me. To claim. The girl. To measure the human. To learn what walks in our forest now. A hush fell. The listening trees' leaves made one long bell sound and then went still. Lyra's hand gripped Ryan's sleeve, tight this time. Ryan felt his heart knocked once against his ribs. The echo in his arm did not warn. It waited. It listened. He looked at Thren and saw not hate but a hard need to know. What is the test? Ryan asked. Thren stepped into the ring and laid his spear aside. He drew no blade. He opened his empty hands. Hold me from the drum, he said. He pointed at the dark round skin on the rock. If I touch it 3 times, I win. If you stop my hand 3 times, you win. No cut, no shocks. Only will and craft. Ryan looked at the drum. He looked at Thren's hands. They were not big. They were sure. He breathed with the root, set. His staff down. He did not put his stunner in his pocket. He put it on the mat with the other tools where all could see. He rolled his shoulders once. Good, Thren said in his own tongue, and Sen did not bother to translate. Everyone understood. The drum waited. The circle leaned in. The leaves held their breath. Ryan lifted his hands. The final test began. The circle of stones fell silent. All eyes watched the drum. It sat on the flat rock like a small moon, dark and still. Thren stood on one side of the ring with empty hands. Ryan stood on the other. No staff, no stunner, no blades. Only will and craft. Sen lifted her root staff. 3 touches, she said in slow trade, so the human and the clansfolk both heard. If the leader's hand strikes the drumskin 3 times, he wins. The stranger stops that. Hand 3 times, he wins. No breaks of bone, no strikes for blood. The listening tree watches. Lyra's fingers brushed Rion's sleeve once. It was not a pull. It was a promise. Breathe with the root, she whispered. Let the echo guide. Do not chase. Catch. Rion matched his breath to the slow rise and fall that lived in the ground here. He felt the hum of the mark under his skin, soft and steady, not bright now, quiet and ready. He nodded. THRN dipped. His head, a hair, not a bow. In agreement. Begin, he said. He moved first. The movement was small, like wind bending one leaf at the edge of a field. His left shoulder turned. His right foot slid. His left hand floated low as if he meant to reach for the drum. But it was a picture, not the real thing. The real thing came from the other side. A sudden cut toward the drum with his right hand. Elbow tight, fingers loose, wrist already soft to let any grab slide off. Rion did not snatch at the hand. He stepped into Thren's shoulder with his chest and gave a small bump. Not a hit. A change of line. The hand missed the drum by a hand's width and slapped empty air. Thren's fingers curled, then opened. He did not look surprised. He turned his hips and tried to swim his left hand over Rion's arm. Rion made a frame with his forearm and the heel of his other palm. He did not push hard. He floated Thren's wrist across his own chest and let it pass to the outside. Outside. Drum waited. The circle breathed again. That is one stop, Sen said. Thren's eyes were stones under bone. His lips did not smile. He smelled of cold iron and clean leaf. He shifted weight and let his tail touch the ground for a moment. Balance moved from his heels to his toes. He came again, this time slow. Slow was worse. Slow was a story inside a story. Stories can hide traps. He reached for Rion's shoulder with his left hand, not the drum. His right hand rested low, calm. Rion let him touch. The touch made a line between them. Thren walked that line with his feet. He started a tight circle, bringing Rion's back toward the drum rock. Rion felt the drum at the edge of his sight, close, quiet, waiting to be touched. Do not be a rock. The echo hummed. Be water that leads. Rion slid his left foot, then his right. Did not fight the circle. He made the circle wider. Thren tried to tighten it. Rion let the circle loosen at the bottom and tighten at the top an egg. Not a wheel. Thren had to reach farther. That reach made space in his ribs. Rion's forearm lifted a thumb's height and blocked the route to the drum again. THRN did not insist. He changed like a fish that feels the net and swims another way. His right hand rose smooth and easy. No shoulder tell, no hip tell, only the hand itself, a ghost under a leaf. It slid around Rion's arm like water. It came down toward the drum. Rion heard Lyra's voice in his head. Do not chase. Catch cut. He did not grab the hand. He met the forearm with the soft part of his own. Forearm and turned his wrist so the bones made a little ramp. Thren's hand ran up the ramp and away from the drum. Thren's other hand found Thren's elbow and held it for half a breath. The drum stayed still. That is 2 stops, Sen said. A murmur rolled the circle. Children breathed again. Da-da-da-da-da-da. 1. Old Hunter puffed air through his teeth and stopped when his neighbor touched his arm. Thren stepped back 1 pace. He looked at Rion's feet, not his face now. He read the tracks the way a scout reads rain. He shifted his stance. He set his weight in a new place. He looked at the drum. He set his jaw. Came in like night falling fast. This time, there was no slow start. No story. Only speed and angle and a sharp change that tried to break all rhythm. He went low like a cat, then high like a bird. He put his left hand on Rion's shoulder again and dropped his weight through it. Rion's knee bent to hold the push and keep his balance. In that small drop, the drum moved closer by a hand. Thren used that hand. His right arm was a rope that went slack and then snapped. The fingers brushed the drum skin. The drum made a small sound like a heart tapping softly on wood. 1 touch. Rion's chest rose. The echo in his marked arm flared and then dimmed, Lyra did not speak. Her eyes were bright, but her mouth was quiet. She watched, and she breathed the root rhythm for him so he could find it again if it slipped. Thren did not look pleased by the point. He did not use his face to talk. He only reset his feet and changed the map of lines between them one more time. He understood now that the human could catch hands, so he chose not to give a hand to catch. He pressed with his whole frame. It was like a tide pushing a boat. He did not shove hard at any one place. He leaned everywhere at once. He put his head under Rion's chin to lift it. He put his hip near Rion's thigh to bend it. We walked his feet until Rion's heels felt the cool stone of the drum rock. The drum skin was a breath behind him. Thren's hand lifted slow as sunrise to land the easy second touch. Rion had one small choice, and he took it. He dropped not back, but straight down. He folded his knees and sat his weight to the ground like a sack falling, not like a man falling. His head slipped from under Thren's chin. Thren's hand hit air where his shoulder had been. Rion's forearm swam under Thren's arm and rose again, carrying that arm up. His other hand found the back of Thren's tricep and turned it a little. Not a twist, a turn. The drum stayed untouched. That is one stop after one touch, Sen said, counting clean. Thren's tail flicked once against the bark floor. It was the first sign of feeling. It's not anger, interest. He changed again. He made space. He did not push. He did not pull. He invited. He stepped a half step away and let Rion's body relax from the tight frame it had made to hold the push. In that draft of ease, he darted in with a low hand and tapped the drum with a clean sound. 2. The circle hissed through teeth, a sound of respect for craft. Lyra's nails pressed her palm until the skin went white. She did not move. She did not call out. Her eyes found Rion's face. He looked back for a half heartbeat. He saw her. He saw the tree. He saw the drum. He saw the small seed she still held from the truth test. He felt the hum under his skin. He chose a different breath. Slower turn was one touch from his win. Rion needed 2 stops. Root Rion whispered to himself. He put one hand lightly on Thren's wrist, not to hold, only to feel. He placed his other palm near Thren's shoulder, not on it. He did not stand square now. He stood like a door half open. He offered a gap and kept a hinge. Thren saw the gap. He went for it. His hand cut toward the drum by the open side. Did not try to close the door. He turned on the hinge. His forearm slid inside Thren's elbow. His palm met Thren's ribs and pushed not back but past, guiding the hand to brush the drum rim and not the skin. No sound, no point. That is 2 stops after 2 touches, Sen said. Sweat stood on Rion's neck now. It rolled once and fell. Thren's breath was deeper, not faster. The circle seemed to lean in and yet hold back, like water just before. It spills from a full bowl. The mark under Rion's skin warmed. A thin shimmer tried to rise. The forest watched. The listening tree hummed, warning without words. Yin felt the shimmer and did not fear it. He set it in the rhythm. He let it be the note he would stand on. He did not push it bright, kept it low. He made it help and not shout. Tan took one long step that changed nothing and everything. In that step he moved his center from a place Rion could read to a place Rion could barely feel. He did something with his spine that made his hips lie. It was weight hiding under grace. He offered his right hand. He wanted Rion to catch it. He wanted Rion's other hand to be busy, so the left could slip past. Rion did not catch. He touched the back of Thren's offered hand with 2 fingers only, like greeting the brave child had used earlier. The touch told him when the false line would snap to the true one. He saw it in Thren's shoulder, in the small tendons by the wrist, in the way the tail stopped moving for one beat. The left hand came like a quiet knife. Rion's palm filled the space it needed. His elbow found Thren's elbow. His hip found Thren's hip. The left hand stopped an inch from the drum. Thren did not freeze. He flowed. He dropped his hand and turned it into a grab for Rion's wrist to break the frame and steal a touch on the rebound. Rion's wrist rolled. The grab slid off.
Ow.
That is 3 stops. Sen said, voice full now. By the test of the drum the stranger holds, the listening tree let go of 3 seeds at once. They fell without wind. The leaves rang like small bells and then quieted. The circle did not cheer loud. They breathed out one long breath together, like a wave covering sand and then sliding back. Thren stepped away, did not bow. He touched his chest with 2 fingers and then touched the drum skin once, not as a point, but as a mark of respect for the thing that had judged them both. His eyes met Rion's. In them was no hate. There was measure. There was a clean, cold kind of praise. Enough, Thren said in his tongue. Sen did not translate. She did not need to. Lyra moved at last. She crossed the ring and stood at Rion's side. She did not grab him. She placed her small hand on his forearm over the quiet mark. Free, she whispered. Both of us. Sen lifted her root staff high. By truth, breath, body, and by the old right that was answered, I speak the law, she said. The mark will sleep when these 2 choose the hush and safety. Human is not bound by chain. The girl is not seized by claim. They may walk together. They may part. No spear will force their steps. The circle answered with their hands on their chests. Hunters touched the ground once. Elders lowered their heads. Children smiled open smiles because children love when hard things end without blood. Rion's knees felt light, not weak. Light like a boat that has crossed a rough tide and now floats in calm water. Looked at Thren and lifted his hand in. A plain human, thank you. Thren looked at it and after a long breath placed his own palm against it, quick as a seal on a paper. It was not a promise. It was not friendship. It was a note between 2 songs that for one moment fit. The moment broke. A sound rolled through the trees that did not belong to this forest. It was not the drum. It was not the wind. It was a long, low growl that came from the sky and the ground at the same time. Birds burst from high branches. The leaves shifted in a wave. Hunters reached for spears without thinking. Children were pulled back. Lyra's head snapped toward the north. Her eyes narrowed. Rift hounds, she whispered. The word tasted of old fear. They do not come so deep. Thren's mask turned as well. They have never come to the listening circle, he said, voice hard now. He looked at Rion, then at the quiet mark under the human skin. He did not accuse, he counted. The growl came again, closer. The ground shook like a giant cat walking with soft feet. From between 2 far trunks, a gray shape like torn smoke slid into view. It had too many legs. It had no eyes. It had a mouth that was not a mouth, only space that ate sound. Behind it came another, and another. Sen set her staff to the ground. Circle, she called. Elders to the tree. Hunters to the edge. Lyra pulled Rion's hand. Not hard, but sure. Your echo, she said fast. It calls to things that smell old power. We must move. We must lead them away, or we must kill them here. The leader will not choose for us. He will hold the circle. We choose now. Rion looked at the rift hounds. He felt the hum of the mark. Answer their wrong sound with its own low note, as if 2 strings close to pitch wanted to sing together and should not. He looked at Lyra. He looked at Thren. He looked at the listening tree. He set his jaw. He nodded once. Then we choose, he said, voice steady. We lead them away. Lyra's gold-ringed eyes flashed. Good, she said. Run with me, and when I say stop, catch, not chase. They ran from the ring and out into the green light just as the first rift hound turned its knot mouth toward the sound of the human's quiet mark and began to move. They ran from the listening circle into the deep green light. The ground rose in soft ribs of root. Leaves brushed their shoulders. Behind them, the rift hounds poured between the trees like smoke with claws. They made no barking sound. They hummed a low tone that hurt the inside of the teeth. The note was wrong, as if a string in the world had snapped and someone kept pulling the broken ends together. Rion matched Lyra's pace. She was small but fast and sure. She did not look back. She read the forest the way a sailor reads water. To the falls, she said. Noise will hide us. Stone will be our friend. Rian nodded. His pack knocked his spine and little thumpschime seeds, coil of rope, a small battery, foil mirror, stunner, copper wire, cracked beacon. He felt the mark's quiet heat under his skin. The echo hummed in his bone and rhythm with the root pulse he had learned. Did not panic. It listened. They passed a stand of pale-trunk trees where bugs hung like glass beads. A hound slid through the beads and the beads turned to dust, then reformed after it passed. Rian saw the shape clearly now. Each hound had 6 limbs, not 4. The legs touched the ground like hands. The mouth was a fold in the air that kept trying to become a hole. The skin was not skin. It was a thin fog that let leaves show through and yet did not let light go straight. The hounds did not see with eyes. They leaned toward heat and rhythm and the old song of marks. Lyra cut left through ferns. Do not shout, she said. Hey! Taste sound, they reached a long slope. At the bottom, the white roar of the waterfall filled the ravine. Spray hung in the air like breath. Here, Lyra said. We make the lead longer. When I say stop catch, not chase, I'm understood. You do not run forever. You run until the ground is yours. They slid down the slope on their feet and hands. A hound reached the top as they reached the bottom. It did not jump. It simply came, like wind, and was suddenly closer. The wrong hum sank 1 note lower. Weigh-ins. Echo answered with a steady line. He did not let the 2 notes meet. They crossed at the narrow rock bridge where they had crept above the ravine before. The spray soaked Rian's sleeves. His boots slipped and caught. Lyra moved like a shadow that loved wet stone. She did not slow. Stop, she said when they were 3 steps past the bridge. She dropped behind a pillar of rock and turned her body sideways. Rian slid behind the next pillar. He wrapped the rope around it in 1 quick loop, clipped a flat metal piece to the line, set his foot on the free end to keep the line low. The first hound reached the end of the bridge. It did not test. It came. It did not slow for the spray. The rope lay half a hand above the rock. The hound's front limbs touched, then its center. The rope lifted into the fog of its body and found weight. The clip bit and held. Rian pulled with both hands and his back. The hound's front slipped. It did not stumble like an animal. It bent in 2 places at once, wrong angles that made the breath in Rian's chest feel thin. Its rear legs pushed. Its center caught on the rope like a snared fish. Lyra moved. Stepped out and brought a flat of bark. The shield Rian had not seen her take down on the hound's side where legs met fog. She did not strike to hurt. She struck to turn. Hound's body twisted, the rope pulled. The hound slid and vanished into the white. The hum dropped half a tone, as if a string had snapped. The air shook. Spray fell like rain. Did not stop to mourn. It came faster. Move, Lyra said. They moved. They ran along the ravine wall, where roots made a ladder. The second hound hit the noumed rope and only paused. It learned in a breath, leaped, but they were already past the bend. New lead, Lyra said as they climbed. Her voice was quiet but strong. Not just run, sing wrong to them. Rian understood from her eyes, before her words caught the shape. The beacon, he said. We make a false mark. Lyra nodded. Noise and light, but not fire. The roots do not like fire here. They reached a shelf above the ravine. The water roared below. The shelf was a long lip with patches of glow moss and 2 stone bowls carved by old rain. Work, Lyra said, fast. Rian dropped his pack and laid the cracked beacon on the ground. He pulled the small battery, copper wire, foil, and chime seeds. He turned the beacon over and found the hairline crack like a jagged river. He had bridged it last night for a blink. He needed more now. He twisted the copper into a coil and laid it across the crack. He taped foil to 2 sides to make a crude dish. He pushed the battery against the coil and felt the heat rise. What tone? He asked without looking up. Lyra knelt and put her palm on the stone. She hummed a note, then another. She leaned her head to the side, listening to the hound's wrong hum moving under the waterfall noise. Low, then two small highs, like a broken bell. Rian adjusted the coil with a small metal clip. He held the beacon in his hands like a small animal he did not want to hurt. He breathed with the root rhythm. He let the echo steady his fingers. He closed the circuit. A sound came. It was not loud. It was clear. A low line like a big string pulled wide, then two quick pings like small glass seeds touched together. The dish threw the sound forward and down. It hit the water and came back up. It filled the shelf with a shape that was not there and yet was. Lyra's eyes widened. Good, she breathed. Set it there. Why? She pointed to the far edge of the shelf, near a drop of 10 men into a pool. Rian slid the beacon there and wedged it under a root lip. He set one chime seed on the foil so it would quiver, and make a faint silver click at 2 quick highs. The second hound came into view around the bend and stopped, confused. Its knot mouth opened a little wider, and its legs took small steps. That did not move it forward. It was listening with its whole body. The beacon sang again. The hound turned toward the far edge, not toward the 2 living bodies. Catch. Right. Lyra whispered. Rian stepped back into the shadows as the hound flowed past. He held the rope. Lyra had looped it around a natural horn of rock. She nodded once. He pulled when the hound's center crossed a dark crack in the shelf. The rope tightened. The hound did not trip. Tried to go 2 ways at once. Physics said no. It folded wrong and slid, claws scraping stone without sound. It fell into the pool below and did not come up. The pool boiled for a breath, then smoothed. 2 more hums moved toward them through the trees. A third answered from the other side of the ravine. They split, Lyra said. They learned fast. We move again, Rian said. He grabbed the rope, the now hot battery, and the beacon. He left the chime seed where it sat. The beacon would still sing. It would be a false mark for a little while. It might save a life behind them. They ran along a narrow path that hugged the cliff. The air was full of mist. Their clothes grew heavy. The mark under Rian's skin stayed quiet in the hush rhythm, but now and then it warmed and cooled as if it, too, tasted danger, and then forgot danger, and then remembered. He matched his breath to the roots again. The echo steadied. At a bend where roots grew like ribs out of the stone, Lyra stopped and pressed both palms to one thick line. She closed her eyes. The forest will help, she said. If we ask. Right? How do we ask? Rian panted. She opened one eye and smiled the smallest smile. We listen together, you and me. Mark and Root. Human and child who bit before she thought. Her face sobered. We ask for a path that breaks the wrong hum. They put their hands on the root. The world got small and wide at the same time. Rian heard the water and the hounds in his own blood. Beneath all of that, he heard a sound like a slow old drum far below the ground. The root pulsed under his palm. Lyra hummed a small note, and Rian hummed it too. It was not a song. It was a key. The root shivered. A vine along the wall tightened and then let go. A patch of moss darkened and became slick. A small stone above their heads cracked with a sound like a distant button popping from a coat. A new line appeared in the rock, thin as a thread. There, Lyra said, voice low. We go up and left. The path is new and weak, but ours. They climbed. Behind them, a hound stepped onto the now slick patch and slid a hand length. That small slip was enough to change its line. It hit the wall with its not mouth open. The stone took a thin bite, and the hound shook like a bell, as if the world's taste had hurt its teeth. It withdrew and went around. The wrong hum warbled. Did not like the root's trick. The new path took them to a shelf over a round bowl of stone, a place where water had once spun in circles for years. The bowl was empty now. The rock was smooth and hard. Lyra crouched and drew quick lines with a wet finger, 3 short dashes, then a long one, then a circle. We make a step trap, she said. Not to kill, to hold. Rian understood from the shape. Set the rope in a loop at the bowl's lip and fed it under 3 small stones. He tied the other end to a stub of root with a bowline. Laid the cable from his kit across the loop, so the first weight would trigger a pull. He put the battery in the cable. When something touched, the clip would heat and shrink and the loop would jerk tight. A hunter's version of a seatbelt. Lyra placed a chime seat under the rope so that when it tightened, it would crack. The crack would be a signal to yank the second line. She moved like a drummer who knows when to strike and when to wait. The third hound came into the bowl like a cloud spilling downhill. It did not sniff. It did not look. It filled space. The front limbs crossed the loop. The cable heated and bit. The loop snapped tight around nothing and then found a shape. Inside the fog, something like bone but not bone. The hound pulled to break free. The chime seed cracked. Rian yanked the second line. A mesh of vine dropped over the bowl from above. It was not strong enough to hold a beast. It was strong enough to hold fog. The hound thrummed, angry now, and the wrong tone made the rope strands sing. But the mesh held for 3 breaths. Was enough. Rian stepped in and slammed the stunner into the place where the hound's pull was strongest. He had never stunned fog. The stunner's prongs kissed air and then found a skin that was not skin. The spark was small. The effect was not. The wrong hum jumped 3 notes and then fell silent. The hound went still like a candle blown out. The fog collapsed into the bowl and became heavy water for 2 heartbeats, then ran away into the cracks. Lyra stared. Human tool, she said softly, small and very brave. Rian tried to smile and found his teeth chattering. Small and lucky. Both are good, Lyra said. A new sound came from the north ridge. Not 1 hound. Many. The wrong hum layered on itself until the air felt thick. Lyra's face changed, not fear. Calculation, they call the pack, she said. Smell the mark and the place where we broke 3. They will not be confused by 1 beacon now. It will come from 2 sides. Rian looked at the cracked beacon, at the rope, at his hands. He was tired in the legs and light in the chest. He was still steady, but he felt the fall of his own shadow lengthening. If we lead them away from the circle, we lead them too. Where? Lyra's eyes flicked to the ravine. There is an old gate, she said, a rock ring where the world is thin. My people lock it with songs. Your mark could open the lock without a song. I did not say before. I did not want to ask. You want to throw the pack through a door, Rian said. Simple. He did not make it sound like an accusation. It was a plan. Lyra nodded once. If the gate wakes, we must be faster than the pack, or we get pulled in too, Rian said. Yes, she said. She did not look away. I bit you. I will go first. If the gate takes one, it should be me. Rian shook his head. No chains. Remember? Not for you. Not for me. He looked at the ravine. He looked at the roots. He looked at the mark and felt it answer him with that small, steady hum. We go together. We open. We shut. We do not fall. Lyra's throat moved. Her eyes shone gold in the green light. Together, she said. They ran along the upper rim. The wrong hum followed.
Ow.
It did not rush. It rolled like a flood. They reached a circle of old stones half buried in moss. The air inside the circle was colder. The light bent a little, like heat above. Road, but wrong cold heat. The ring did not glow. It remembered. Lyra put her palm on one stone and sang a quiet line. The stone did not answer. It needs the old key, she said softly. It needs your mark. Rian stepped into the circle. The echo in his arm rose like a hand. It did not flare. It made the sound the listening tree had taught him then. Bent the sound 1 tone toward the hound's wrong hum and 1 tone away. He breathed with the root. He let the mark speak. The air in the ring thickened. Space in the middle went soft. The first hounds reached the edge of the stones. They did not slow. They're like thin places. They rushed. Now, Lyra said Rian, lifted the beacon and held it high so the dish pointed into the ring. He closed the circuit 1 more time. The low line and the 2 small highs poured into the thin air. The ring pulled. The hounds pulled back. The world pulled both ways. Catch. Lyra said through her teeth. Rian did not try to push the pack. He changed the line. He stepped to the left stone, then the right, making the sound move in a curve. The first hounds followed the curve like hunters following a scent line. They came past the center, not straight through it. Lyra threw the rope. Like a net, and the rope sang with the wrong hum, did not catch bodies. It caught edges. It bent paths. 3 hounds slid sideways. Their knot mouths opened wide, too wide, touched the thin place. They vanished. The hum dropped in a trough that made Rian's knees bend. His head rang. More hounds came, angrier now, smarter. They tried to split again. Lyra ran to the other side of the ring and clapped her hands once, loud. The sound cracked like a branch. The pack flinched. The rope line caught another edge, and the beacon sang the curve again. 2 more hounds hit the thin place and went dark. The remaining hounds stopped at once, the wrong tone held like a blade. At the back of the tongue, Rian's beacon shook in his hands. The coil was too hot. The battery smelled like metal and rain. His fingers burned, and he did not drop it. 1 hound flowed low, so low it was almost flat against the ground. It went under the rope line, slid along the stones, and lifted 1 limb to touch Rian's ankle. Lyra moved faster than thought. She stepped between small body a door and drove the flat of bark at the limb. The shock traveled up her arms. She grunted and did not fall. Rian saw her shoulders shake. He saw her teeth show. He saw that she was tired and still brave. He dropped the beacon, grabbed the stunner, and slammed it against the limb at Lyra's feet. The spark bit. The limb withdrew as if the ground had turned to knives. The hound's wrong hum fell, and for one heart's blink Rian thought he saw a shape inside the fog that was not a beast at all, something thin and sad. Shadow of a shadow trying to be alive. Then it was fog again. The gate, Lyra cried, will not hold open long without a song. Close it, or it will drink the forest. Rian let the beacon drop into the ring. It sang once more, then died with a small hiss. The thin place held. Open hungry now. The last 3 hounds crouched to jump together. Rian did the only thing left. He stepped backward out of the ring and pressed his palm flat to the root that curled around the closest stone. He matched the root rhythm one last time. He spoke without a voice. He asked the old wood for a door to close. Lyra understood at once. She pressed her palms to the stone opposite. She hummed the listening tree's tone, but lower. The air in the ring shivered. The thin place trembled, like a soap film about to burst. Now, Rian said. They pulled their hands away at the same breath. The thin place snapped shut with a sound like the sky coughing. The last 3 hounds leaped too late. They hit stone. And fog scattered like torn breath. The wrong hum cut off. The forest's true noises rushed back so hard that Rian staggered bird. Water, leaf, root, his own heart. Silence fell after the first loud rush, the kind of silence that feels big. Lyra stood very still, eyes wide, chest moving carefully. Rian looked at his hands. His fingers were red where the battery had burned them. His arms shook. He laughed once, a short, quiet sound that was more air than joy. He stopped because the sound felt too loud. Lyra turned to him. Together, she said again, softer now, almost a question. Together, said back. From the far side of the ridge came a different sound, the round, low call of the trial drum.
Act for judgment.
This time, for gathering, for counting the living, for thanks. Thren and a line of hunters appeared on the path between roots. They carried no spears ready now, only coils of rope and cloth for binding wounds. Thren's eyes looked from the cold stones to the 2 figures at the ring, and then to the marks the vanished hounds had left in the moss. He said nothing for a long breath, then he touched his chest with 2 fingers. The pack is gone, he said. The circle stands. He looked at the old gate, and the world is still ours. Rian's mark was quiet under his skin. It did not shine. It hummed the root rhythm like a tired heart that has found its bed. Lyra picked a small piece of cold foil from the ground where the beacon had cracked and folded. A seed, a reminder human craft and forest law, both needed. Sen came last, staff tapping stone. She looked at the ring and then at the two young people who had stepped into the thin place and stepped out again. No chain, she said. No. Chain and yet a bond. Lyra met Rion's eyes and then looked away, shy in a way that did not belong to fear. We should hide your mark better, she said, before night. Hush breath is not enough for what we did today. Rion nodded, feeling the weight of what was next settle on his shoulders like a cloak he chose to wear. Teach me the sap, he said. Teach me the hush that sleeps the mark without sleeping my heart forever. Lyra smiled, tired and bright. We will ask the forest. We will ask the old healers. We'll not do it alone. He looked at the ring one more time and then at the green light beyond. The path back to the listening circle was short now, but the path ahead, whatever it was, felt long and strange and good. They turned together toward the drum. By the time Rian and Lyra reached the listening circle again, the air had changed. The fear had broken like a storm. Hunters stood in small groups, checking each other's arms and ribs. Elders spoke in low voices and tied leaves over cuts. Children searched the ground for the small seeds the listening tree had dropped, as if those seeds were tiny medals for courage. Thren stood beside Sen, his bone mask hung by its strap now, showing a strong, narrow face with quiet eyes. When he saw Lyra and Rian, he did not speak right away. He simply looked at the old stone ring on the ridge, then at the two who had faced it, and then he nodded once, like a man accepting the size of what he has just seen. Sen lifted her staff. The forest still stands, she said. The pack is gone. The old gate sleeps. She tapped the root floor once, and the sound rolled out and came back. We give thanks, and then we do the next hard thing with care. Lyra glanced at Rian's arm. The bite mark no longer shone, but it felt warm to her hand, the way a coal feels warm under ash. We must hush the mark, she said softly. Oh. More will come. Not today, but soon. Rian looked down at his forearm. Could almost ignore the hum now. Almost we do it, he said. His voice was calm. Calm did not mean easy. Thren stepped closer. He did not crowd them. He gave a leader's space. There is a healer who knows the hush sap better than any living, he said. She lives where the roots drink salt when near the cliffs. If the human will take her hand, we walk him there. Not as a prisoner, as a guest. Rian met Thren's eyes. Thank you, he said. 2 plain words, and they were enough. Lyra looked more surprised by Thren's offer than Rian did, but she covered it with a quick nod and a small smile. The path to the cliffs ran through tall grass and smooth stone. The light was softer here, pale and clean. Birds with long tails flew low, skimming the grasses like paintbrushes. The listening tree grew far behind them now, but Rian still felt its slow rhythm in his chest. It was like a song stuck in the mind after the music ends awning if you do not like the song. But in this case, a comfort. They reached a shelf above a gray sea. A wind came up from the water and pushed their hair back. A short figure stood at the edge, cloak fluttering like a leaf. Her hair was white, but her back was straight as a spear. When she turned, Rian saw eyes the color of clear smoke. This is Nell, Thren said. She keeps old ways that most forget. She keeps them because she lost people when others forgot. Nail studied Rian's face and then looked down at his arm. She did not ask to touch. She waited. Rian turned his wrist up and offered the bite. She placed 2 fingers beside it and closed her eyes. For a long breath, nobody spoke. Even the wind held its voice low. Half the work is done, Nail said at last. Her voice was soft but strong, the way a bowstring is soft to the touch, and hard to pull. The mark hears the forest now. It is not trying to shout anymore, so I can ask it to sleep without forcing. Without forcing, Rian repeated. Good words. Neil's mouth curved. You are polite. That helps more than you think. She turned to Lyra. Child who bit before she thought, do you stand with him? Lyra's cheeks warmed. Do, she said. I stand with him. I will breathe with him. I will take my share if there is a price. Nail nodded. Good. The hush is not a trick. It is a bridge. Two across is safer than one. She looked to Thren and Sen. I will need the circle of root and the sea wind. I will need a small drum, not the big one. I will need quiet from every mouth that is not breathing for the hush. Sen's staff tapped once. Hunters moved. Elders moved. In minutes, a rough ring of roots lay on the stone, coiled like a sleeping snake, open at one side so the sea wind could enter and leave. A small drum was set by Neil's knee. Skin was pale, stretched tight and painted with a simple spiral. Nail placed a small wooden bowl in the center. From a pouch, she took a twist of clean cloth and a tiny vial with dark sap in it. The sap smelled of pine and bitter smoke and something like mint. Rian's chest tightened at the smell, then eased. He remembered Lyra's warning, the sap asks the heart to slow. Human hearts do not always listen kindly. Nail faced Rian. We do not lie to each other, she said. You may fall asleep and wake heavy. You may fall asleep and wake slow. You may fall asleep and I may have to hit your chest with my hand until it remembers the beat. If I cannot wake it, your story ends here. She watched his face. You still choose? Rian thought of the pack, the gate, the listening circle, the little child who had pressed her palm to his. He thought of Lyra's apology and promise, and of how the forest had listened to them both. He thought of the work he had come to do, so small beside all this. I choose, he said, but I want one thing. What thing? Nail asked. If I do not wake, do not mark or chain Lyra to me, he said. Break the bond clean. Let her walk where she wants. Nail nodded once. Spoken like a person the forest will help, she said. Then she looked at Lyra. And you. Lyra swallowed and lifted her chin. If he does not wake, I will carry the echo and keep it quiet, she said. I will not make a game of it again. Neil's eyes softened. Good. She poured a few drops of sap onto the cloth and folded it into a small pad. She set the bowl where the sea wind would pass over it and thin the smell. Sit, she said to Rian. Cross your legs. Put your hands where mine will be. When I drum, breathe with the root. When Lyra hums, follow her song. Rian sat in the root ring. The stone was cool through his pants. He placed his hands on his knees. Lyra sat behind him, so close that her breath touched the back of his neck. She did not touch yet. She waited for Neil's sign. Nail tapped the small drum. The sound was not loud. It was deep. It matched the slow pulse under the earth. Tap, tap, tap. The sea wind carried the sound away and brought it back thin like a ghost of the beat. Rian closed his eyes and let his chest rise and fall with it. Now hum, Nail whispered to Lyra. Lyra hummed the tone the listening tree had taught them. Low, clear, not pretty for show, true for use. The note was a long bridge between heart and ground. Rian's breath found the bridge. His shoulders dropped. The lines in his face let go, as if someone had opened a tight fist. Nail lifted the sapcloth to Rian's mouth. Open, she said softly. Only one taste, not two, not three. Rian opened. The cloth touched his tongue. The taste was sharp and dark. For a moment he felt heat rise behind his eyes, the way tears rise and do not fall. Then the heat went down into his throat and chest, and everything inside him made a slow turn, like a ship turning its bow to a new current. Hands? Nail said. Lyra placed her hands over Rian's hands. Her palms were cool and sure. Nail placed her hands over Lyra's old hands, light but firm. 3 layers, 3 rhythms. Drum and wind and hum. Rian felt the mark in his arm, hear the song, and answer with a smaller song. The 2 songs braided. His chest drew breath and sent it out and drew again, but each draw was longer, and each send out was longer. From a fast walk, to a careful walk, to a slow walk. He did not force it. He watched it walk. Good, Nail breathed. Stay with me. A sound tried to come, fierce, thin whistle. Rian did not chase it away. He watched it come. He watched it go. Lyra's hum warmed. The drum tapped like a steady hand on a door. We are here, we are here, we are here. The sea wind brought salt, and the cry of some high bird. Rian felt his hands go light. He felt his feet go far. He did not fall. He floated, felt the mark, become small, like a light under cloth. He saw a picture in his mindler's small teeth, his own surprised ouch, the shimmer. The cave, the drum, the gate, the rope that bent fog. He saw the pieces of the day line up on a string. The string lay on the ground. He did not pick it up. He let it rest. Nail watched Rian's chest. She watched his lips for color. She watched his pulse in his neck. She raised 2 fingers. Sen, standing just outside the ring, lifted her palm a hair. Thren's face did not move, but his eyes did not blink. Now the deep Nail said. She moved one hand from Lyra's to Rian's sternum and pressed. Not hard, just enough to wake the skin. Down, she whispered, and the drum matched her. Word. 2 taps close together, then a long space. Rian's heart slowed another small step, felt a soft drop inside, like stepping from a curb you did not see. He did not like that drop. Wanted to grab. He did not. He breathed and let the drop become a flat place under his feet. Lyra's hum lifted half a tone and held. Rian followed. His heart did not stop. Turned a corner and kept going. Slower now. Steady. The mark's hum sank into the drum's sound and lay there. It did not vanish. It slept. Nell took her hands away. Lyra held a breath and then let it go. Rian opened his eyes. The world came back in layer salt air, pale sky, the white line of waves at the rocks. Lyra's face leaning around his shoulder, wide and wet-eyed, Neil's lined mouth curving at the corner. How do you feel? Nail asked. Rian checked his chest like a man checks a tool after repair, not sure if it will run. Slow, he said. But strong. The mark is quiet. Nail nodded. Do not run fast today. Do not climb. Do not fight. Do not make new gates. A small smile flickered. Do not bite anyone? Lyra laughed once and then pressed her lips together to be polite. Neil pretended not to see the laugh, but the laugh warmed her eyes. Thren stepped forward and set something on the stone Rian's small stunner, cleaned and wrapped in a leaf. You dropped this by the ring, he said. A hunter found it and did not keep it. He said, a tool that speaks electricity is a friend. That should be returned fast. Rian took it with both hands. Tell him thank you, he said. Tell him he can borrow it if he ever needs to stun fog again. Thren's mouth almost smiled. Almost. Perhaps I will ask him to teach me first, he said, which was his way of saying the offer was welcome. Sen looked at the sky. We will walk you back to your camp, she said. You will fix your beacon with a clean hand, and you will call your ship. You will rest here until your ship comes, and then you will choose. Rian heard the last word and felt its weight. He looked at Lyra. She had stepped back so he could stand. Now, she stood with her hands behind her, shy and strong at once. I have work at home, he said. I have people there who think I am late already. He paused. But I don't want to leave like a stone thrown and lost. Lyra swallowed. I do not want to be a chain around your wrist, she said. I do not want to be a story you carry like a heavy bag. She looked out at the water and then back at him. I want to walk with you to your ship, to the sky, to your world, because I choose it, not because I bit you. Yuan's chest pulled tight and then let go. Dat. He looked at Sen, who watched without judging, and at Thren, who listened even. When he said nothing, and at Nail, who had one hand on the small drum and one on the wind. If your people agree, and if the listening tree does not ring a warning, and if your own heart says yes tomorrow after sleep, he said, then I will ask my ship to carry too. Lyra's smile was small and bright, the kind that can light a room if you let it. Then we will see what your stars smell like, she said. They walked back through the grass and stones. The forest felt different now, not because the trees had moved, but because Rian's heart had changed speed. Sounds came in clean, colors came in deep. He felt wide awake and pleasantly tired at the same time, like a man after a long swim who stands in the sun and dries at his camp. Things were just where he had left them, the metal case by the fire. Pit, the folded map, the mug with cold tea, the foil mirror taped to a vine screen. He sat on the crate, opened the beacon, and smiled at the broken board. It seemed small now. He could fix small things. Lyra crouched across from him and turned the magnifying lens between her fingers. "Teach me," she said. He did. He showed her how to choose the thickness of wire by how it sang when plucked. He showed her how to clean a contact with a single gentle scrape. He showed her how to listen for the tiny click a circuit makes when it decides to work again. They touched solder to copper and watched it flow like bright, quick water. The beacon gave a slow, strong blink. Not a weak one now. A promise light. "Good," Lyra said in a whisper meant for happy machines. "Very good." They sent a short call to the Skyrian's call sign and a few simple words. "Alive, safe, request pickup coordinates." The beacon's message went out in a clean cone. The forest did not flinch. The hush held. As the sun lowered, the clan brought food to the camp: flat cakes, wrapped in leaf, slices of root that tasted like warm chestnut, a bowl of pale fruit that shone in the light like small moons. Rian ate slowly, tasting each thing. He did not feel the rush of the sap now, felt steady, like a wheel set true. Children came in a group and stood near the edge, whispering and staring. Lyra waved them closer. "This is Rian," she said. "He does not bite." "Not first," Rian said, and the children laughed. Brave again now that the scary part was a story with an end. Night came on. The listening trees' far leaves rang once as the last wind passed through them, then went quiet. The stars came, out sharp and many. Lyra lay back on the soft grass and pointed. "That one is the archer," she said. "That one is the river. That one looks like a broken net." Rian named the ones he knew by other names. "The lantern," he said. "Twin boats. The old road." They argued in the soft way friends argue, each trying to show the other how a different name makes a shape look new. It felt good to argue about stars. When the fire was small, Sen came and sat near. She carried no staff now. She looked up at the sky, not at them. "When you go," she said, "do not take the hush like a blanket you never wash. Wake the mark sometimes to see if it is still yours and not a stranger's. Ask it to speak truth, not to sing pride. That is the way to carry old power and still be human." Rian listened. "I hear," he said. Thrin stood at the edge of the light. "You changed the ring today," he said. "Not with force, line and breath. If you return, bring more of that." He paused, and more small tools that stunned fog. Rian smiled. "I will." Nail came last. She handed Rian a twist of clean cloth with the faintest breath of sap in it. "For safety," she said, "only if the mark starts to sing wrong. Only with Lyra's song and someone who drums steady. Not alone." "Not alone," Rian said. Clan drifted away. The night sounds grew soft and regular. Rian lay back. Lyra lay beside him, with a respectful hand spaced between, eyes on the stars. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tomorrow." He agreed. He closed his eyes and felt the hush working inside him like a quiet loom, weaving his breath and the root pulse together. He felt the mark sleeping like a small ember under ash, safe if watched, dangerous if fed without care. He thought of the old gate, and the thin place, and the shape he had almost seen in the fog. He thought of his ship's door opening, and Lyra's face when she saw a human sky. Morning broke clear. The beacon blinked with a new message. Signal received. Pickup window. 2 days. Ian laughed softly. 2 days. Enough time to rest. Enough time to listen. Enough time to decide. Lyra stretched like a cat and rolled to face him. 2 days, she said, reading the display. We will show you the salt caves. We'll ask the listening tree again. We will tell your ship to bring extra seats. Rian sat up and tied his boots. He felt light. He felt grounded. He stood and offered Lyra his hand, not as a claim, not as a chain, just as an invitation across a small space. She took it and rose. They walked toward the morning together. With the hush in their lungs and the forest at their backsand, with a choice ahead that, for once, belonged to them.